This video is another engineer video. This one is going to be on creating basically a bridge using a raft. Now, the idea for this video came about from some footage I just watched out of Ukraine, of the Ukrainian troops trying to evacuate casualties across a river. Now, all bridges around this particular location have been destroyed either by the defenders to prevent the attacker from moving across the river into the city, and then behind the defenders' lines, bridges back there were destroyed by the attacker to prevent reinforcement and escape of the defenders' heavy equipment and troops from the area. Well, this particular unit wanted to move some casualties out of there, try to get them back to friendly territory to get higher level care. They had to cross that body of water, and this is what they came up with. I thought about this, and there's some ways we can improve on this, turn it into a basic engineer task. Now here, the layout of the area for consideration. We have a river here, and I tossed in an oxbow, that's what this is called. And over here we have a destroyed bridge. Now, description first on the raft. And I'll try to generalize it so that pretty much anyone can copy it. First off, you're going to have at least 2 pontoons. These are going to be the things that are going to keep you afloat in the water. They could be giant pieces of styrofoam. They could be barrels. I've seen people do stuff like this with barrels in the past. Another thing would be taking some logs, kind of rounding the bottom edge behind your cut, so that way when it starts to beach itself, it's going to ride up onto the beach easier, or if you come across any type of rocks or obstacle underneath, it'll kind of get fed underneath the pontoon, hopefully without stopping it, depending on how low it's riding in the water and how much of an edge you put on here, if it's rounded or if you just kind of straight cut it at an angle going across to make essentially a ramp. Over the top of this, you're going to have decking. This decking is going to be a large piece of material. It could be a door off a house, a nice solid wooden door. It could be a barn door. It could be a piece of plywood. Or you could use planks, wooden boards going perpendicular to your pontoons on the bottom. Now, attached to your decking, in the center of it, you're going to have your ropes attached. This can be done by drilling a hole or boring a hole through the decking above and then tying off your rope on each side. Or you could have a piece of wood, like a 2x4, attached in here, either on top or underneath, right in front of and behind the pontoon. And the rope is attached to that using a giant eyelet of some sort, a giant staple, something along those lines. Something where you're going to be able to tug on it, put some force on it, so that you can pull the raft across with whatever load's on it without the rope becoming detached from your raft. Now, I would also recommend on one side of it, put another attachment point in the middle. And then on that, you're going to attach 2 more ropes, one going to each end, and I'll explain it up here. So you got an idea of generally how your raft should look like. Now, we got our river here. Now, in the video, they were using theirs right here next to a destroyed bridge. One crew's over here with the rope, one crew's over here with the rope, and they're pulling the raft across with the casualty on top. Because the casualty is completely on the decking, a guesstimate is the decking should be around 6 to 8 feet. You want it to be manageable for getting it across. Now, putting your crossing point near a destroyed bridge probably not the best idea. Yes, the water's going to be slower here because of all the debris in the water, but the enemy's already hit this target once. Plus, it's a location that can be easily found on a map. So if they find out you're using this bridge here, it'd be pretty easy to for that forward observer to call up the field artillery and say, hey, we need another barrage on TRP, target reference point, 005. Fire for effect. They already know they had it zeroed in because they took out the bridge already. So they lay their rounds right on target and everyone in that area is dead. Another issue I had was they were doing this crossing during the daytime in this footage. Really, you should only do river crossings at night to at least cut down on observation from the Mark 1 eyeball. That soldier who's off on the side with a pair of binoculars. Do it at nighttime, control your noise, cuts down on being detected. Granted, you still can get detected by thermals, I'm aware of that, and night vision. But you're doing your best to try to minimize becoming a target, plain and simple. So doing your crossing over here by the bridge, probably not the smartest. So where would be the best point? Probably like this on an oxbow upriver. Because what's going to happen, the current's going to come down, it's going to hit the edge here, and it's going to slow down as it comes through here. Once it gets around the top of the oxbow, that's when it starts speeding up and coming down. And once it gets to this point here, that's when it really starts pushing through faster because of the back pressure from back here pushing the water through. Your best place to put your raft bridge will be either here on the oxbow or the area in front of it. How far in front of it? Well, really, it's going to depend on that individual river, isn't it? You're going to want to try to find a location that you can cross easily, where the water's not going to be exceptionally deep, because remember, you got to get someone to the other side of that river with that rope before you start pulling the raft across. So you don't want a spot where the current is extremely fast, and you don't want a spot where the river is exceptionally deep. You also don't want it too shallow. You don't want it to the point where you put a load on top of this raft and it sinks down into the water to the point where it's going to ground itself on a sandbar over here, or potentially just hit bottom in any location, period. So it's going to be trial and error finding the best spot. But you'll have your team over here. You're going to send across a team on foot with a rope going over. They're going to tie off that rope to something over here. They're then going to do a security sweep over here. Make sure the area is clear. There's no ambushes. There's no enemy positions. There's no mines, no booby traps. If it's clear, they then come back, signal back to the crew on the other side. Everything's a go. The raft is already here at the edge or nearby. Gets tied off onto the rope. You then load up your load on top of the raft and it starts getting pulled across. Now I mentioned putting a rope here in the center. This rope, you're going to have one length going up here, one length going up here. On the up current side or upriver side, you're going to have someone holding each rope on each of these points, basically being a guide. You're trying to keep the current from pushing the raft downstream. Make it easier for the person here and here who are trying to pull that raft across. So this rope obviously is going to be a lot longer than this rope. You're going to be out at an angle. How much of an angle? Really, it depends on how much rope you got. But figure you probably should be, say, about 30, maybe a 45-degree angle, give or take, when you're about mid-river. I wouldn't go too much below 15 degree off of the rope that's going straight across, because you want to be able to still get a good tug on there, pulling it in this direction to fight against the current, which is going to keep trying to push that raft going downstream. So once the load is on here, these guys start pulling over here. These guys start feeding out the rope a little at a time, whatever pace you come up with. Gets to the other side. They pull it either up onto the beach, whatever they're deciding to do, how long it's going to take to get the load off. They get the stuff offloaded, push the raft back. Someone stays on the ropes over here, signals, and then these guys pull the raft back over here. And then repeat the process. Either send over another casualty or two, or send over more supplies, more gear, whatever it is. Now, could you use this for moving troops across a river? Yes, you could. But I would really think of this more as a materials type of situation. You're trying to send across cases of ammunition, cases of rations, fuel cans, jugs of water, large amounts of gear, heavy weapons, ammunition for the heavy weapons, that type of stuff. Or you could load up the rucksacks for the people in this troop that's going across to try to keep them somewhat dry, and then pull them across. And then after all the gear's back over here, have someone or a couple people maintain the rope over here, and then people grab onto the rope, start crossing behind the gear, link up with their stuff over here. Last ones over here would come across with the ropes, get the raft across, disconnect the ropes, bust off the raft or hide the raft, whatever you come up with for your little battle drill. You know, are you going to use the site again or moving on to another location? You know, it determines what you're going to do. If you're not going to use the location again, I would say tear apart the raft and spread the materials around in the area, so that maybe sometime in the future, something that's unforeseen, if you do have to use this method again, the materials are still there. Hopefully, or at least most of them are. You just gather them back up, try to get that raft put back together, toss on some new ropes, and you use that point again. There's something for you to consider. I give the Ukrainians a big thumbs up on this one. This was a good idea, but you can do it a little bit better, a little bit smarter. Now, for all my engineer brothers and the Patriot Militia movements, always remember, essayons.